Hello, class. Okay, so this is going to be an introductory video, just going over the basics of the class. We won't go over any actual material, though. So, I'm Jeff Wagner. That will be your teacher for the semester. And the way this class is going to work is it's going to be, mostly online, except for the labs, which we will be doing, actually on campus. So it's kind of a small class, which works out nicely. So we can, space things out and kind of minimize the risk that way. So yeah, we'll do actual in-person labs instead of simulated labs, which just are not the same at all. So that's a good thing. We're also going to have exams actually on campus as well. But everything else is going to be online. So this is the first semester of a two-semester physics sequence. It's an algebra-based class. And so I just want to kind of outline what we'll be doing in the class. So to start with, the book is Physics by Cutnell and Johnson. This is an old edition. This is one I started with. It's 8th edition. We're probably on 11 or 12 now. I'll have to check. But it doesn't really matter what edition you have because not much changes. Everything we cover is, this starts with Newton in the 1600s. And so, everything we cover is very old. Ever since I started teaching, I said nothing that we teach actually changes. Turns out there is one exception to that, which we'll talk about soon, actually. But otherwise, and again, it's not something really essential for this class. But, you can use whatever textbook you like. And so, let's start with kind of an overview of what we're actually going to cover. So, we're going to cover 12 chapters total in the sequence. And I kind of listed them here. So, if you look at just the numbers, chapters 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9, or really up to 10, we just go in order. So, we cover the first 10 chapters in order, and then we kind of skip 11 to 15. Now, chapter 11 is on fluids, things like pressure and fluid flows. We just skip that entirely. It's something that could definitely fit well in a class like this, or in the next one in the sequence. But just due to time constraints, there's only so much we can do. Because that's kind of an isolated topic, that was cut out. So, we just skipped chapter 11 in the entire sequence. And then chapters 12 to 15, that's on thermodynamics. And that would be covered in the next part of, in Physics 122. So, and then we go to 16 and 17. Now, I follow the book reasonably closely with kind of two exceptions. One exception is on chapter 1, where chapter 1 is on an introduction and also on like a mathematical background. So the only prerequisite for this class is basically algebra. Trigonometry is not a prerequisite for this course. Now, we actually do a small amount of trigonometry in this course. However, we do it very frequently. So what I'm talking about is just basic triangles. Say you have a triangle that looks like this. And say we know this angle and the length of the side. What are the lengths of the other two sides? That's something that we're going to be doing repeatedly. It's an essential skill for this course. And even though you haven't taken trigonometry or you weren't required to, I'm sure you've been exposed to triangles like this before. But chapter 1 contains a mathematical background. And I skip that, kind of. I don't skip any of the material, but I remove it from chapter 1 and just include it where we need it. Like when it comes to doing things like this, breaking things, if you have a triangle and want to find these two sides, we don't need that until chapter 3, so I kind of just work it in where we need it. So any of the mathematical background material, I just put that, in with, when we're talking about that subject. Okay, so that's the one thing that I do a little differently. It's not a big deal. Just doing all the same things, just reorganizing a little bit. The only other change I make from the book is chapter 9. Just do things a little differently there. But hold off on that until we get there. Okay, so we're covering 12 chapters, and they break pretty nicely into 4 groups. This one doesn't really form a group naturally, but as far as the exam goes, this works out pretty well. So introduction, we're going to talk about things like numbers and units and significant figures, the real basic stuff that's essential before we proceed. And then we move on to kinematics, which is a study of motion. So an example of that, say something is moving in a certain direction at a certain rate, where's it going to be at a later time? Or if it's speeding up, how fast is it going to be going after it travels a certain distance? Just being able to describe motion. That is the subject of kinematics. And that covers 2 chapters because we start with kinematics in 1 dimension. So just one-dimensional motion, an object moving in a straight line. Could be going back or forth, but can't leave that line. And then, 2-dimensional kinematics. Like if you throw something, it follows a path in 2 dimensions. It's not going in a straight line. So that's a separate chapter. Now, what we do in this chapter would apply just as well in 3 dimensions, but we don't really do problems like that, so we don't have to worry about that. But so it's just 2-dimensional kinematics. And so we're just describing motion. Now we move on to the next group here. We have chapter 4 is on forces and Newton's laws. I just wrote force and Newton. Forces and Newton because I ran out of room. But this explains why things move. Like you exert a force on an object, you can cause it to move. So here we're just describing motion. Here we're talking about why things move in the first place. And then kind of expanding on this, there's kind of 2 cases we can consider. You apply a force on an object, you can cause it to move. 2 very common kinds of motion are like linear, but also circular motion. Like if you tie a rock on a string and swing that around, that's circular motion. We cover that in chapter 5. And then chapter 6. So like chapter 4, we kind of consider Newton's laws in more of a linear case. And then in chapter 5, in circular motion. And then we get to work and energy. And that's another kind of section of 3 chapters. Next, we talk about what's called impulse and momentum. Now, logically, these 4 chapters would make a nice group in themselves. And then chapters 8 and 9 are on rotational motion. So like rotational kinematics, like say we have a wheel that's spinning. You want to know, like say it's spinning at a certain rate, like how many times is it going to spin around in a certain time interval? Things like that. So that'd be rotational kinematics. And rotational dynamics would be like, okay, say we have this wheel and we apply a force to it. What kind of rotation is that going to cause? So again, it would make more sense from a logical perspective to group these 4 chapters together and then these 2. But we want to keep them in like groups of 3. So they overall form pretty nice groups. But so basically what we're going to do is we'll have 3 chapters. We'll cover 3 chapters and then have an exam. So we'll go through chapters 1 through 3, have an exam. 4 to 6, we'll have an exam. 7 to 9, we'll have an exam. And then the last 3 chapters, we're not going to have an exam on those. For 2 reasons. One, we have a cumulative final. So even though you're not going to have an exam on those 3 chapters, you will be tested on those because they'll be included in the final. And I've done it before where I have an exam 4 on these 3 chapters, and then right after that comes the final exam. And that's just a little too much to have 2 exams back to back, especially in the summer, because we don't have a final exam week. So I did that once in the summer, where I had exam 4 one day and the final exam the next day. That was kind of ridiculous, so just kind of merge exam 4 and the final exam. So, yeah, well, 3 exams, and then the final. Okay, now, a bit about how the class is going to work with this online nature of it. I found, I like just, when I started, when the pandemic started and we just shifted to online, I tried to make it as normal to a regular class as possible, where I would just lecture online and, just like we were in a classroom. And the reason I did that, and I think that kind of makes a lot of sense, or at least in theory, is that you can ask questions. But I've found that over, since this started, if you combine all the questions that I've gotten during lectures, maybe 5 minutes worth. And so the idea that we need to lecture online, it just isn't necessary. It doesn't really do any good that way. So what we're going to do, our class is scheduled for 2 hours. I think that's what it says. I'll have to double check. I think they might have changed something. But our class is like Monday through Thursday from 8 until 10. And that'll definitely apply when we have when we have labs and exams. We'll actually be on campus. But for the rest of the class, what I found works better than just lecturing online is I pre-record the lectures. So let's say first lecture is going to be just this introductory material. And so what I can do is I'm going to pre-record that, so you can just watch that. Like our first class will be on a Monday. And we'll go over the syllabus on Monday and answer questions. And after that's done, instead of lecturing on the introduction, I'll just tell you, okay, you can watch the video, and you can just immediately watch the video if you like, or you can wait till later in the day, or you could have watched it earlier. It's kind of up to you when you want to watch the videos. But you'll have links to these videos. So you can just click on the link, watch the lectures that way, and each link is going to have the time of the video. I rounded off a little bit. I always round up. So some of these topics can vary in length greatly. We might cover a short topic that's 10 minutes, where another video could be an hour. And so just, to help you plan things out, the time involved is going to be, on the link, so you can know, how long it'll take to watch it. And it also helps me, plan, how to schedule the class. When I do things online, when there's no interaction with students, it's very natural to just teach and go much faster than normal. And so, this will definitely help knowing how much lecture to assign at on a particular day. So anyways, let's say the topic for Monday will be introduction, where we'll go over chapter 1. So what I'll do is we'll have our first, from 8 to 10, we'll spend maybe an hour just talking about the class and going over the syllabus, answering any questions that you have. And then for the rest of the class, we'll just sign off and you can watch the video. And so I'll assign the video, and then so what we're kind of lacking by doing that is you watch the video, what if you have questions on it? And since we're not doing it live, you can't answer the questions. So what I will do the next day, so like if I assign chapter 1 on Monday, on Tuesday, we will review whatever I assigned the previous day. So on Monday, I'll assign chapter 1, and then on Tuesday, we'll review chapter 1. You can ask questions. If there's no questions, we'll just do a bunch of problems. And that's going to be kind of the format, where I'll assign a topic one day, where you read the notes, watch the video, or read the chapter in the book or the section in the book. I also post my lecture notes online, so you can read those. And then, watch the video. And when I assign a topic one day, then the next day we'll review it. And then we'll have a quiz on it as well. Now, one thing I should point out, if you look at Canvas, which is where everything is, we have modules where I don't have like a chapter 1 module or a chapter 2 module and so on. What's on Canvas is just when I organized my notes, years ago, I kind of broke it up into more individual sections. So like chapter 4 might cover a lot of things. Like Newton's laws, I broke into like 3 different sections just because it's a very large topic. And so overall, for these 12 chapters, I think there's like 26 separate topics. And so I'll assign those. I'll say like do this particular topic today, and then we'll go over it tomorrow. And we're going to have a quiz online for each of the those topics. So there'll be like 26 quizzes overall. And those will be done online on Canvas. Now, should probably talk about how we'll do the online quizzes. I really hate, I'm kind of changing on that, but I've always hated computerized like math and physics homework. It just doesn't really, there are advantages and disadvantages to it, but overall, I don't like it. Although I kind of figure out a way that I do like, and I might even continue when we go like back to fully in-person lectures like before the pandemic. But the online quizzes, there's different formats that I can ask questions. Like one is obviously multiple choice, and then there's a short answer one. And I used to just do that. So you can just enter like either pick one of the choices or enter a number. But what I do now for these online quizzes is I make every question an essay question. And the reason I always hated online quizzes, well, a couple reasons. One is the computer grades it. And so you can enter, I can ask a question and you can answer, let's say your answer is 27 meters. And say you enter 27m. We'll learn, m is shorthand for a meter. And you think you did the problem right, you enter this number, and then the computer says, sorry, you're wrong, you get no points. And even if that's the right answer, and I've had this issue in the past because in this short answer, it wants a numerical answer. So if you write an M there, it gets confused and marks it wrong. It just wants number 27. And again, I have to give a little bit of range, like 26.5 to 27.5. It's like you either get it right or wrong. And if you don't enter it properly, like the way the computer expects, it marks it wrong. And that's very stressful, I think, on students. Like I had an exam where a student got like maybe 15% on the, taking the exam, and the computer grades it and gives them the numbers. But then when I looked over his answers, it turned out he got, I think, an A on that exam. The reason the computer gave him such a low score is because of the way he was entering the numbers in a format that the computer did not understand. We're going to learn soon, we sometimes deal with very large or very small numbers, and you have to enter them in a particular way. And he was doing that in a way that was, pretty standard, but Canvas liked it in a different form. And so, I gave him all the points back. But, just psychologically, that's really stressful when you're taking an exam and it's saying you're doing everything wrong. So, but now I make everything an essay question so that the computer does not grade it. So you just enter your answer. And what's nice about an essay question is you can write whatever you want there. So you can even type out English. The answer might be 27 meters. You can just say 27 meters and move on. And the computer won't try to grade it. I have to go through and grade it myself. And so I think, this works a lot better. So, we can, you can enter, you can write paragraphs, whatever. Now, the one thing you cannot do online in this kind of essay format, or maybe you could do but you don't want to, is graphics. Like, what if you want to draw a picture? Can't really do that. Now, you may be able to take a picture and upload that, but that would take a while, and these quizzes are typically timed. So here you can write what you want. But what I do is I have the last question on every quiz and exam, or no, the exams we'll be doing in person this time. So all the quizzes, the last question is not really required, but the way I recommend you do quizzes is you get out a piece of paper and just write it out like it was a normal quiz. And then at the end, you can take a picture of your work and upload it. And so that way you can draw pictures and you have much more freedom. Oh, here's Loki. Say hi. Just exploring. So you can take pictures of your work and upload it, because again, if all I see is a number, it's very difficult to give partial credit on that. So, yeah, I like to be able to see what you're doing. For some reason, some students just don't do that. They just like to write a number, and usually that means if that number is not right, that it's just a 0 because I have no idea what you've done. Now, sometimes if there's like a common mistake, like some of you might know this already, I'm sure a lot of you do, when it comes to measuring angles, there's two common ways to measure angles: degrees and radians, and that's a very common mistake, is just not using the right units. And so if a student makes a mistake like that, there's a good chance I'll recognize it, because I'll see that number and say, like, okay, you're just in the wrong mode, and then I can assign partial credit. But again, you don't want to count on me recognizing just based on a number. So even though some students just don't do it, but yeah, if you just take a picture of your work and upload it, then I can see what you're doing and assign partial credit just like it was a regular quiz. And I know that takes some time to do that. And so the quizzes are timed, but I always add time for this file upload. So you can take pictures. There's some programs you can use, because that can be a little bit of a process. You have to take a picture, and then from there you have to upload it. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to have, in this introductory module, I'm going to make just a practice quiz, just a file upload. So you can practice that. You don't have to do it, but just get in the habit. And you want to be able to do that fairly quickly, because it is timed and we'll shut you off at some point. Okay, now another thing that, yes, we'll have a quiz on every topic, and I will drop a couple over the course of the semester. But yeah, the quizzes. Now, another thing, obvious, homework. Now, I kind of lumped homework and quizzes in together. So, there will be a few quizzes. I don't try to fix any time limit, like every quiz you have 20 minutes to do. I kind of make each quiz and determine, how much time you should have, add a little bit of time for that file upload, and then set the time limit. And again, when you see the quiz, it'll have that time limit. Sorry, my cat's knocking things over. So that time limit will be indicated, so you know how long you have to do it. But there's a couple that are going to say no time limit. Those are fundamentally different, and that's because some questions may take a while to do. And so those would be more like kind of like homework kind of questions instead of quizzes. So there will be a couple of those, not too many, where it says no time limit, but there is a due date. So again, you just have to get it in on time. But those you can just look at whenever you want. You can just look at it and then close the computer, work it out, come back later, and then submit your answer. But the quizzes, like say a quiz has a 30-minute time limit, what that means is when you open the quiz, you have 30 minutes to submit it. So it doesn't mean you have 30 minutes. Like you can spend 15 minutes now and then just log out and then come back and do it 15 minutes, take the other 15 minutes. And the reason why is you can see the entire quiz at once. So you could just, log in, write it all down, and then spend all day doing it. So there's no point in having a time limit any other way. But the ones that say no time limit, you can look at those right away, come back to it, even change your answer if you don't like what you wrote down earlier, if you finish it, but then think you made a mistake and you want to change your answer. So you can do whatever you want on those until, the actual due date. So just kind of summarize the format we're going to be doing things. Like, we'll spend the first part of class, the part where we actually be online on Canvas. Oh yeah, the password, or the Zoom link and the password, those are on the syllabus, so you can just, that'll be the same. And our online Canvas thing doesn't have time limits, it's just always running. So presumably you could log in at 3 in the morning, probably no one else is going to be there, but yeah, I think it's one of those things where, we'll just schedule time on, I think from like 8 to 9 a.m. will be the standard. So the first half of the class we'll be reviewing what we did previously, and then I'll assign new material, which, we'll log off at that point when we're done with questions and all that. And then you can spend the rest of the class like reading and watching videos and whatnot. So the idea is, I'll assign a topic, next day we review it, and then I'll assign the next topic. And the quizzes are going to be after the review. So like I'll assign a topic one day, and then after the review, so the quiz will automatically, like say our class is from 8 to 9 a.m. And again, there's really no reason we have to cut off at 9 o'clock. Like if you have questions and want to keep going, yeah, we can do that. But I think a standard will be an 8 to 9 a.m. will be actually online in Zoom. And yeah, so the quiz, like after we review for this hour, the quiz on that topic will become active at 9 a.m. So yeah, they won't be visible until after the review. And then the due date will be very clear. So you can do it whenever you want as long as it's before the due date.